One here?
Yeah, I was wondering if the building material and garden supply specified whether it was for personal or commercial use.
Not from what I saw. I mean, this is the bulk of the breakdown.
Yeah.
The detail. But when I looked at this report, it indicated to me that with what home ownership exists in the area, that people are spending their money. They're probably going to a Home Depot in an adjoining community and spending those dollars. The key point with this particular graph, to reiterate it, or to table, is that there's money being spent outside, and by creating a community environment, giving people the opportunity to spend the money inside the community, they're going to do it. They're not going to go elsewhere. So there's opportunity for that development, right?
Yeah.
Retail, commercial development.
What do you mean by float?
Float is the difference between the demand and what's supplied. If the demand exceeds the supply in that community, then they take their dollars and spend them outside of the community.
So most of those numbers are positive, except for food and beverage and health and personal care. Most of those numbers are positive. That means that the positive numbers represent the amount of money that people go outside the area to spend. And the one in parentheses, that means that there's an unmet need.
No, I think we reversed it.
That's just the difference.
Just the-
There's the
So people are coming to that community
yeah.
to buy
Or
stuff.
people are coming from adjoining communities, coming in and spending $52 million at the food and beverage stores.
So it's an attractor for food and beverage and for health and personal care
Yeah.
stores. It's an attractor. That's the main economic personality of that area that we drew a box around.
So maybe we need to change that, right?
I'm sure some of that is like attributed to the whole they were talking about the Price Mall that they built, where the student was talking about they had all the McDonald's, Burger King, all the cheap kind of commercial fast food, and there's no so they don't have that in neighboring neighborhoods, and that's probably why, or at least some of it.
What do you say you need to change?
Well, we need less of that and more of the general merchandise stores, more building material type of stores, garden supplies, so people have the ability to improve their environment and spend that money there rather than jumping down the street to go to McDonald's and spending those dollars. Or people coming from outside the community and spending it to go to a McDonald's, drive in, to drive out.
Just to add on to that, I don't quite agree that every community needs to serve every single need within the community boundaries. It could be it could suffice to say that this area serves Vietnamese food really, really well. There's Chinatowns and Little Italy's for a reason, and I think that deserves some consideration.
So it's a strength of the community. Which is, the way I read this chart then, it's a strength of this community that you have stores up by Little Saigon that are attractors. They're places that people come from other places, like the lady I followed from Del Cerro who went to the store and bought bok chow because she's buying her weekly food supply and going back to Del Cerro, where she's spending the rest of her money some other place, but she's coming into that community. So that community, that plays to the strength of all the presentations, which is the creation of cultural corridors or cultural areas that are unique to City Heights, and that's a testament to it. I'm all over this study like a cheap suit when it comes up with bullshit. Like there's 30, how many millions in building materials? 14 million money spent outside the community. When the majority of the residents are renters, why would I go to Lowe's or Home Depot
Oh,
to
it's
buy?
25% are actually 75% are renters.
Yeah.
25% are homeowners.
Why would 75% of my renters go buy building materials when I'm renting a place?
Well,
I mean-
not to argue with you, but it's probably the 25% homeowners.
But 25% of which there are no upper income census tracts in Mid-City. The majority of the census areas are low income census tracts. So how can I afford to spend more money? The only areas, there's only 2 areas that are middle income. The rest are low and moderate inside of City Heights. And I can't imagine just how much money there's not that much money. There just is not that much money.
So I guess the question comes to mind, and I think with all of these studies, we can be critical of them. The question is how to get the answer to your question. I mean, in my mind, I'm looking at this study and I see a couple things. One, I hadn't really thought about, which is the negative numbers are actually good because that's money coming into the community, right?
Correct, exactly.
Okay, so we don't necessarily want to change that. We want, so that's one thing. That's from an economic standpoint. The other part is, which we really haven't, I don't think any of us have really touched on, is, I think in your video, Steve, it did, is are we serving the needs of the people that live there? Are there some commercial needs that they have where they're going out? And how do we capture that internally? But it's a different viewpoint of saying, you know, economically we want to generate money. The question is we also want to serve our customers, which are the people that live in that community. And I think that to me is the interesting part about the demographics is we know what they look like. We know how much money they have. We know kids and everything else. The real question is, so what do they need in the community that we can bring into the community to enhance these retail corridors as part of our project?
So let's just evolve right into a general discussion about, so what does all this say? If you want to take a seat, let's leave that slide up here so we can work off of it. And let's hear it for a great...
Good job, guys.
So let's just do pop-up. What do you think? What's crossing your mind about creating a walkable environment? What does all this data tell you we should be doing?
I read an article about Copenhagen and Amsterdam and why they were huge models of bikeability, which I think is closely related with walkability. And I think it's just a culture of respecting those 2 activities, biking and walking. I think in City Heights there might not be such a culture, actually in the United States in general. So I mean, creating the infrastructure to allow, you know, it would have to be a slow evolving process over generations, but creating the infrastructure, colored bike lanes, or shared walking spaces. There are a lot of communities that are like investigating, like London is removing vehicle-only pathways in exchange for all 3 kinds of transportation in one area. So everyone's very conscious of each other. So accidents in those areas have reduced greatly. So another example is Broadway in New York. That was shut down for a while and was only pedestrian, and that reduced a lot of traffic collisions as well. So I think that starts the pace for safety in general for the area.
Let me ask you this: how would you describe walkability in City Heights based on all the information that's been put out here today?
Say that again.
How would you describe walkability in City Heights based on the information? So my first question is: do people walk in City Heights?
Yes.
Is the environment conducive to walking in City Heights?
Some parts.
So I'm hearing some are. So let's say what are the pluses that exist in City Heights for walkability?
What infrastructure, what environment, what is it about that environment and the people that would be a plus for walkability? We got all this data up here.
And we gotta take this data and we gotta make it match what we're about. So, okay, what do we got? What?
I think walkability there's a huge exogenous cause, because it's not because the streets are walkable that people are walking. It might be because of economic reasons, like if I don't have a car or I don't want to pay for
Okay,
gas.
all right, so that's part of the demographics, is that we got people that don't have cars. Okay, so walking isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And that's a good thing, right? Okay, so that's something we can build on. Yes?
I feel like a lot of the cultures that comprise City Heights have, in their cultures back in their native lands, have walking is more prevalent than
Okay.
in the typical United States culture.
Right.
We would be playing on their already ingrained walking sentiments to encourage it.
Kevin?
Well, I was going to echo is that there's a concentration of low-income people along transit corridors that have unused public transit facilities.
Duh.
Yeah.
So the solution to the problem, one solution to the problem is,
More mass transit, the ones that's designed to get, and probably even an increased, I thought that an east-west solution would also be necessary, more than just the I-15 BRT solution.
Okay, so just a point that we didn't emphasize is that the BRT solution involves both a north-south route, which is the freeway, and then they have BRT planned along both El Cajon Boulevard and University as east-west connectors to downtown.
And I've seen those plans, but I think that they're just not, they're not efficient in either of them as a line to get people to attractions that they actually want to see, because it doesn't involve any of the traffic calming for personal vehicles on either of those lines, between the places where they're most jammed up.
Okay.
When you go through North Park and Hillcrest,
Right,
down to the Washington Street
Right.
Station.
right, okay. Yes?
I think that in order for streets to be walkable, that you need active storefront, retail, mixed use. And I think that's the goal, and you need the little greenway strips. But I think if we went into City Heights and we observed what areas are currently walkable, where people are working, where there's a lot of street activity, and see what the uses are, what is there, that we could take that information and maybe create the walkable environments in the areas or access, right, on the street fronts that we choose to.
Because I look at this map, businesses in City Heights, and I look along University and El Cajon, and at least based on the black dots, there's a lot of concentration of businesses, right?
Might not be the right kind of businesses, I don't know.
Okay.
Makes sense.
so you're saying focus walkability where existing businesses are?
Yeah, if we went out and did the research to see where that street activity is, that's positive street activity, that we could use that information to help create our model.
Okay. Yeah.
I was wondering if we could see the slide where the businesses were clustered based on the number of employees they had, so like the density of that.
Is that up on one of these?
Oh yeah, it's that purple one right there.
The purple one?
Yeah, I think that graph just shows we need to find larger businesses that have more employees, because 5 employees isn't really that many for a small business, and the largest any section has is 3. So there's only 3 businesses.
Those are densities, though.
But
So let's go with
Density's different.
It's not the
But I
actual
mean-
number.
Okay, so explain.
So explain the difference between.
It's not the number of employees, it's the density, so.
It's the number of businesses with 5+ employees per acre.
Yeah, per acre.
So I mean, that's still not very large, and a vast amount of it is really under. So I mean, it's just kind of something we could look at and focus on getting more larger destinations with more businesses with more employees, so that they have more income and potentially draw within the area for
Okay,
employment.
so you say promote more large-scale development.
Not large scale, maybe not such single ownership businesses, maybe a medium-sized to small business where they employ more than 5 people, kind of get a larger economic impact than just kind of a single
Good, like find incentives to
incentive to
attract.
grow and get medium-sized businesses that are community-focused.
Okay, so theoretically, I know that we got some hands up, but theoretically, if I looked at the chart and said, despite what Mr. Boughton thinks about home needs, home construction needs, bringing a Home Depot in here would be good in terms of bringing more jobs, larger business.
It would be good to bring more jobs, but it also fight the density idea. So maybe smaller, locally owned stores would be a better idea.
Like you brought a,
Figure out a way to bulk up some of the good ones. I mean, by providing technical assistance.
Yeah.
Maybe some loans or credit, because what we don't have in Mr. Boughton's presentations is,
hey, wait, that's not me, it's these kids.
we don't have information about business income and access to capital stuff. Like, for instance, maybe if we had information about bank loans, small business bank loans, we would compare here compared to somewhere else, we would say, well, that's a problem we got to solve. That might be a key piece of information also. But that's a good point, you know. So all the areas where the concentrations of people is where there are kind of big buildings, and that may enhance walkability. Those people who think to go out and walk somewhere, come back at lunch, is that a walkable enhancer? Yeah. Plus, it's a business development kind of thing.
I think with more business density, or the walkable area should be in more to create more economic development, right? So as like what you guys were talking about earlier, that there's a lot of food, food restaurants that actually, City Heights is really known for. And I think that this gives an opportunity for other kinds of businesses to kind of pop up. I'm not sure if you guys said there was, less retail, so it gives a chance for different kinds of businesses to make it more versatile and more attracting to different kinds of groups, not just food, because seems like it's already utilized well, but maybe, retail or something that that City Heights is lacking. So it could be, so people in the neighborhood can actually use it, and are close to it, but also other people can interact.
Going back to the employers who hire more than 5 employees at a time, I think it's really crucial to keep the integrity of the community, and that does not include big box retailers whatsoever. They have no moral or any kind of incentives to give back to the community, and so I do agree that businesses should be promoted, but I think we should make sure, promote local, not mom and pop, I guess mom and pop, but mostly just businesses that serve the community with the interests of the community in mind.
I was actually going to say something about that too. There's something all groups have mentioned and we've talked about a lot, but we haven't actually addressed, is the issue of serving the community and what they want. I think we're sort of ignoring the fact that we have a really big advantage, really big advantage here, in that we have really strong ethnic communities. And I know that really good ethnic communities, if those mom and pop stores or whatever can be transformed, somehow designed into destinations, I know people will, and those destinations are not only really good, but they're also walkable and connected to the BRT systems that people can come from all over. I think that would work really well, because I know there's one Thai town in the entire United States, and it's in LA, and I'm in San Diego. I still manage to spend my money there twice a month or something. I know people fly down from San Francisco. Same thing with the major Chinatowns, really good Chinatowns, little Saigons. We have, I think the main groups, if you break them down, are Vietnamese, Somali. I know there aren't really big Somali. I don't think there are other hubs where there's a dense concentration of people that descend from Somali. So
Minneapolis.
that would be, that's cool. The point is that. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's right.
The point is to make them destinations. It would not only increase how much people are on the streets, they would bring business from other places.
Okay.
And to support that Filipino couple in that video talked about going to National City. which is a destination for all the Filipinos in San Diego to go get their food, and that's a great point, very good point.
Do we have data on what the total number of ethnic population is in City Heights? I mean, like, what's the dominant ethnic group in City Heights?
Hispanic.
Hispanic?
They're like 60%.
60%. And then what?
I think Asian or Somali's next.
Asian is
Asian.
a large.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like we don't have like little Mexico. City Heights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So if we're going to improve the walkability of the community, then we're going to pick a couple of streets to do it on, a 1/4 mile strip, an 1/8 mile strip, or
What do you think?
what do I think?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's the walkability issue, and then I think there's zoning. And if we're talking about walkability, then we'll address the streetscape, and then whatever zoning's there, whatever areas where people congregate exist, but it'll improve. Where there's traffic, the traffic will improve to those areas, but it's a little bit different than addressing zoning.
Where would you put the walkable area, given a definition of walkability as being 1 square mile in all directions? Where would you put it after you got all this information now? Or do you have enough information to know where to put it?
Well, let me ask you the basic one. So what factors or what kind of framework would you use to make that decision?
Yeah.
I think it would be easier to start with places that have a lot of businesses. That way, that we already have an area where people are drawn to come to. So if we make those areas more walkable, there's less effort on our part to test out, I guess, different types of walkable traits.
All right. But wait, hang on first.
Oh yeah, I agree with her. Like where area like has like commercial and like business uses.
Okay. Yeah, let me ask something. There's somebody in my group gave you the answer.
I would center it around the transit and then go density.
That's okay. That's okay. But somebody in my group gave you the framework for the answer. What was it?
You place it near all the tractors, so you have all the tractors and all the generators, and avoid the detractors. So you overlay the composite results with the business map right there, and find where the best spot is. Most black dots in the most red areas.
Okay, so we have the pedestrian master plan that includes this priority rating
Pedestrian
system.
model, yeah.
So we have attractors, generators, and detractors. We've got all this data up here where I think you guys are starting to pull those things together so that we can begin to overlay it on your maps that should take us where we want to go, right?
Okay, yeah, let's go back. Let's say that again. What would you do? You'd make a map with overlays?
I would overlay this business map with the pedestrian model results and find the cluster with the most black dots with the darkest red in that model, which is just the highest potential for walkability.
Businesses overlaid by...
Yeah, so if I took that map I put up on the screen, that red one that was really pixelated, overlaid it with this one or this one, and work those two together to find where the businesses with the most employees were located versus the business with just total businesses, compared to the place that the city or the model predicted as the most walkable areas. Put those two together, and then use those as a starting point to work with, and then from there kind of look at how funding is utilized.
Okay, but there's one piece missing in your algorithm.
The community.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good starting point.
So there's a third piece to
Yeah.
overlay. What would it be? Concentration of people?
I mean, concentration of people is kind of enrolled in the generators because, generators is just population density. So it's just this stuff combined together. So
I think if we look at the population density already, it's already around the areas that have a lot of businesses. So there's that map. You can see the darker areas are up toward University and Alcohol Boulevard, right? And then same thing with the businesses, so we can see that, right, the darker areas mean there's more population
Right, so
density.
there's more population, I think that's what it is, that right?
Yeah, right,
There's a
so,
higher population density.
yeah, it's all along those two corridors. So you already see that the community wants to live closest to the businesses to make it easier,
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
So just to make sure that everybody understands this density issue, because I was a little confused. This first map over here is the distribution of population. So the darker, more people, 2,000 to 2,800 people in one block group, okay? These are little block groups. This one over here says, let's take the number of people and divide it by square acre. So this is a big place right here, and it has more people, but it has a lot more space. Where this is a small area right here, and it's got lots of and so you have to kind of, when you're demographically looking at this, what's the concept, what kind of housing is that, or what kind of people are living in that area, and then what's my demographic? And then, so you're hitting all around the mark, just trying to get you a little bit more focus.
Well, and also with that overlay, then you could like compare, like you could do like a process of elimination for like the specific detractors. So you'd eliminate all the stuff that's close to like the highways or any railroad systems, places where there's like lots of collisions, like for pedestrians and stuff like that, because they're not going to go shopping in an area where their safety's at risk.
What are the detractors?
There's collisions. There's the average daily trips. Street lighting, speed limits, so that would affect kind of El Cajon Boulevard and University where the speed limit's a little bit higher than some of the side streets.
Freeways, railroads.
I'd say the exception of the detractor model.
And the slope.
Okay.
So
Because it's showing you what's already walkable. The most walkable spaces is the most attractive spaces.
Right.
You need to find the place where there's the least density with the most capability so you can exploit the land the highest with the least walkability to improve it from there on so that it's smarter.
Wow.
Okay, let's
That's
try
good.
that. Let's try that again.
The attractability model is showing you what's already the most walkable because it's telling you that places that are unsafe for people, places that are unlit, places that are unfriendly to the pedestrian are detractors.
Okay.
So the best way to develop with the highest financial use is to find the place nearest to transit
Okay.
with the least density with the highest zoning so that the land is least exploited at this time right now so you can buy it at the lowest value and increase your value the most.
Okay. I follow what you're saying. Okay.
What about that? Where is that?
That's the 15. That's that 15 park all around there. It's all zoned much higher than it's used right now.
Okay, so that's a good point, and I don't think that that came out very well in one of our slides, is that when you do look around that 15, they were suggesting that we could increase the density in that area by 3,000 some units, okay, based on the density. In other words, it's underdeveloped. They have like 2 units where they could put 100.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're saying is, if we focus there, we can put the 100 units, and we can increase value. We're buying low,
Selling high.
selling high.
And was there some recommendations somewhere in the process of how you increase that density?
Well, there's
Huh? Was there?
Yeah.
Oh, what was it?
Oh, what, high density?
How were you going to achieve the kind of density that you're talking? 3,000 units is all you need in a square mile to. Did
Well,
the
there's-
architectural students make it?
Oh yeah, and then the in-law units. I think that this is a big thing that I'm sorry because I didn't say it in ours, but that in-law units adding because you can add them to all single-family homes. If you had a model where you could finance the addition of an in-law unit to any single-family home, you had an easy way for the people to do it, then they would accept a higher fee or a higher assessment to improve the tax base of the area.
A live-work zone.
A live-work zone.
Overlay.
Okay, so just to kind of put a perspective on this, it's from an investment side, this sounds exciting,
Yeah.
right? But what we have to remember is that we're talking about areas where there's people already, right? Okay, we've got people living in these blocks. It's not like we're looking and saying this is greenfield development. There are people living there. Okay, so the question becomes,
you know, what's the public reaction to this? You know, are they all that excited?
So you want to increase density with the least amount of intrusion on existing.
Right, so we're balancing, so you're right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sorry, but which is interesting about your concept, because you're not saying build multi-story buildings, you're saying add units, live, work, that type of thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can mix it, because if you provide the neighborhood as a whole, all the single-family homes in the neighborhood with an increased value via the inline unit they can add, that you're going to facilitate it to them better.
Right.
Then maybe some of the renters and some of the other people that are underutilizing because of various factors, tax factors, they will be induced, or you can induce them to raise their density.
Okay.
There was a question here. Did you
No, Claire was.
You got it.
Just point out his idea, if it would work best with your idea if you use just the detractor results, because once it gets added into the composite results of the model, detractors actually give you positive points, because you will attract people and get more walkability once you fix them. And the model's used to prioritize funding.
Okay.
So if you go in a more walkable area, you're going to get more funding quicker, is the main thing with that.
So do you have in your mind where that is?
No, because the images they put on are really low res and they blow up, so.
The big red.
Yeah, just pixel blobs.
So Steve, is that a question in your questionnaire, or how do you get that at that issue in a questionnaire? How do you ask people?
He's saying the general plan, right?
I'm saying the pedestrian results.
Pedestrian master plan.
Yeah, the pedestrian PDF are
They
just
have
too
a-
pixelated.
They have a model for predicting walkability. You know, there's many models for walkability. There's a general walk score available right off of Google. Plug it in an area. So, I mean, there's a lot of models. And so if we use that model, we would take the matrix of their parameters and apply it as it is right here.
Yeah, the only reason this model is important is because it determines what the city will fund and when.
Right. Right.
Except we have berries, so we can do anything with them.
And I think, but that's the part, is that what we're trying to do. So money, I think I told you this in my lecture, money is not a risk taker. They are not going to blaze new trails. So we've got to take them where we think that there's enough signs of success and get them fixed. And I think that's part of all this data that we've got, all the reports my group's been doing, all the work that you guys have been doing. The question becomes, what portions of City Heights can we prioritize as being there? My group is looking at the BRT because we're saying, wow, transit-oriented development, we got 2 BRTs, we've got the city focused on this. Now, I'm not sure whether that's the best place to be. I mean, I think there's some data that's suggesting Fairmont has got a lot going for it. But we focus there only because the BRT study's focused there.
Fairmont's only 2 blocks east. Only you go farther.
We're on 15, yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about the market, yeah.
I mean, we're talking live-work zone between I-15 and... Has anybody mapped the money, the available existing public funds for achieving walkability? Do we have is it possible to map where that money is allocated for?
I thought your group was going to get that.
I thought yours was going to get it.
I thought you guys were doing the GIS.
You were collecting the data.
Okay,
We can map where it's used in the city right now.
All right, look, here's the deal on the public money, because we spent some time talking about that. I think all the groups find a chart that tells who's got federal, we got state, we got local money, okay? There's categories under all of those, okay? The question becomes, A, what do those categories fund? What specific improvements? Now, the thing that we haven't really articulated here, or maybe we did, let's take the Woodbury group. All right, they want to put a skate park, right? Okay, so to do that, what do you have to do? You have to buy land. You got to acquire the spot, right? And then you got to do whatever improvements are in there.
But they want to do it on the freeway cover.
Okay, so they want to do it on the freeway cover. Okay, so the point being is that how do you get that land? How do you get that? How do you what kind of improvements? I don't know how much a skate park costs. but you've got to expend some money, and what category will allocate money for that? So the BRT study talks about creating an open space or a green linear street where they're putting all these street trees and all this stuff. And the question becomes, okay, what source of money is going to buy street trees?
Well, I think that's part of the, if you allow these in-law units, you can leverage an assessment off the neighborhood. Because that's creating money. That's creating money for a bank loan. If you loan somebody $100,000 to put in an in-law unit, there's interest on that loan compounded over 20, 30 years for that bank. And then if you have a system where it gets built, the people get something, you can get an extra assessment off of them, and then because you allowed them to build it, because zoning right now probably doesn't allow it, you adjust the zoning a little bit, and then you can leverage that money against other money and developer and federal funds to match it.
Is it legal to assess a renter?
It's not, but if you induce, you could do energy makeovers for apartment buildings, and then assess the landowner and the rent, and then in addition, the renters save on their energy bills throughout the day if you had an agreement that they wouldn't raise the rent based on the lower energy costs for their building.
But so we're talking about there are different models of assessment districts that you can create that will actually assess the parcels a certain amount of money to fund certain improvements.
Yeah, there's Mello-Roos bonding, there's maintenance assessment district agreements.
Okay.
So we need a list of those for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
We need a list of,
Well, here's
back here.
I'm just curious where all this plays into gentrification with improving and revitalizing, like what can be done to avoid gentrification with all these different studies that are going into improving green and all this stuff. But I mean, when it comes down to it, this is a low income area, so I think gentrification is a pretty big thing.
So the answer is, and we've been telling them, we told Caltrans and we told Price, is don't move anybody who's there, just add more. If you have to move somebody, find a way to let them move back in.
So what if the people that come in, like from, or they see these new improvements, so these new people are going to come in, so what happens to that?
Rent control.
Okay, but wait.
Tried that, but that's not going to happen.
Okay, so number one is we I think what he was saying is we build new units without displacing people, just work over here. And now the question is we've got new units and we're bringing in new people. All right, so that hasn't affected the existing residents because part of gentrification is dislocation. So we're not dislocating, we're bringing in people, right? Okay, the result is what? You got exactly what we're trying to do here is increase property values, right? We are really trying to increase property values.
So you can assess. So you can assess.
Right, so you can assess and pay for this, and then this gets back to what you're saying is that if property values increase, I'm a landlord, I now can charge more rent, right? Which eventually will start to displace people. Okay, so it's an issue, all right, and we'll have to have strategies to deal with it. But I'm concerned that we sometimes use gentrification as an excuse not to do good things in poor communities. In other words, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a greenscape, nice tree-lined street in a low-income community.
Here's a piece of data. Here's a piece of data that we need to get a hold of and put on a map. The location of dedicated affordable housing and Section 8 certificate holders living in City Heights. If you can geomap Section 8, and say we're reaching, so we're in the middle of the semester here. So we have to kind of make some decisions, and we'll make them in the group as we go forward. And a key decision, and I'm not sure if we're ready for it, is we're kind of backing into a smaller area of analysis. The potential recommended walkable area, so that we concentrate all of our analysis on making that place happen. I'm not, so, I mean, what we're talking about here, do we know enough now to make a decision about where we should do it, and that we should concentrate all of the second half of our class on building a case for that geography? Or should we wait?
I think we should wait.
You think we should wait?
Yeah.
I think we're close.
We're close.
I think we should.
Key pivotal decision, right?
Yeah.
Especially for the advocacy group, because if you're going to advocate for this, you got a much harder job than if you're going to advocate for this. I mean, when we build our strategy, it's one thing to do it for, well, if we did it over here, we could do this. If we did it, you know, if it's this, we can develop an advocacy model that says, you know, where we got to go for the money and who we got to talk to and how many people we got to take with us to get it. You know. Okay, but we've run out of time. Good discussion, close to it.